All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this live Q&A, and I'm going to crack this off. So I put up this snow background behind me because, yeah, it's snowing in Calgary right now, which is where I am. So get in the comments with what you want to talk about, your questions, what you want to discuss, everything like that. Lynx has gone bankrupt. I don't know if you heard this, guys. I tweeted it out, but yeah, Lynx is ceasing to operate. Basically, they've gone bust. It's kind of interesting because I did even tweet this out that, Lynx going bust. What you look at Air Canada and WestJet and these companies that are essentially run by oligarchs and they get bailouts. But Lynx, see you later, Lynx. It's been nice knowing. So, yeah. Probably does mean airfares are going to go up. Maybe that Financial Post article was onto something. Anyways, let's see what's going on in the chat here. Happy weekend to you. Happy Saturday. All right. Just trying to scroll up, see if there's any questions, anything anybody wants to discuss here. People talking about crypto. There is so many crypto scams. By the way, I will never approach you to tell you to WhatsApp me or anything like that. There's so many scams now. It's just unbelievable. I cannot keep up with it. I would have to employ a person just to do that constantly in order to keep up with it. But realize this, if you're getting messages off somebody pretending to be me, there's impersonators on Twitter. There's impersonators on YouTube. It's funny how you say the wrong word and it will trigger the algorithm, but all these crypto bots and everything just get away with it in the comments. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy, but there you go. That's YouTube for you. But yeah, crypto's interesting. I've been thinking more and more about it as trying to build like an offshore strategy, essentially. And, crypto does have a utility in that because obviously, like if you're living in a place which is in Central America, South America, where the banking system, isn't as integrated as maybe the United States and Canada, crypto has a purpose there for means of transferring funds, but it is very unstable. It's also very speculative, unfortunately. And most people aren't buying it with the utility in mind, which I get. Like, I get the Bitcoin use cases. I understand all that. And every time I mention crypto, people, I get all the keyboard warriors out on me because, and that just kind of proves something in itself. There's a lot of emotion that surrounds crypto. And I think that is because it's a speculative bubble. It's a speculative mania, essentially. Unfortunately, at this time, doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever in the future. But yeah, certainly exploring offshore strategies and stuff like that, it has kind of opened my mind a little bit more because, when you're trying to use that traditional banking system, if you're moving money to offshore different jurisdictions, anything like that, then it's time consuming. It's riddled with expensive fees. Like a lot of these other banks are charging like, $50 to receive an international wire, sometimes $100. And I'm talking US dollars as well. Sometimes $100, sometimes a fee, like a percentage fee. So it does have a use case in that. And I have a friend who's from El Salvador, like he was born there. He moved to Canada and basically most of his family still lives in El Salvador. And he remits money back to them, and he now uses crypto. I'm open-minded when it comes to crypto. I really am. It's just the fact that it is mostly bought and purchased as a speculative mania. It's like people just speculating on the price, thinking it's going to go up, and yeah, that kind of defeats the object of the whole use case argument for crypto anyways. Holding cash is pointless. You might as well burn it. Well, I mean, if you're getting, 5.5%, 5.36% US treasuries, or you've got it in GICs that are earning over 5%, I mean, that's a fairly decent return. If you look at historical, what we've had to put up with for the past 15 to 20 years, I mean, before that, you could get better returns on safe assets, but yeah, not so much anymore. Oh man, some of the comments are hilarious, but I can't repeat them. I would not trust this. Charlottetown, how are you doing? I would not trust the stock market. They are not screwed to the normal people. It only makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. Too many fees in the stock market. I mean, it wouldn't be the fees that necessarily puts me off at this moment in time. It's just the fact that you can get like a risk-free return of over 5%. Why on earth would you go into the stock market, especially when, you know, most of the major indexes are all-time highs now? I just don't think it's worth taking that risk. When you look at indexes like the S&P 500, I think they average around 9% yearly return. So yeah, that's a better return than your 5%, but is it worth taking a huge risk if it then falls 20, 30%, which is likely? I mean, that's what the yield curve is predicting, and I still believe that yield curve. So mortgage debtors shaking in their boots. Yeah, you're not wrong there. I mean, I'm going to be covering no, wait, it's not Sunday today, it's Saturday. So on Monday, I'm going to be covering this foreclosure story. This lady, probably already seen the video if you follow me on Twitter, but essentially she's put out her story as a warning to others. But you've only got to imagine like how many other people are in that situation who literally cannot afford the home that they're living in. And you know, when you look at this bubble as well, it's kind of an interesting thing because, you know, a lot of the speculative component of the bubble has not kind of bled its way out. It's just moved to different markets. So it's incredibly speculative in Calgary right now. You've got a lot of home flipping that's going on. You've got a lot of out of province investors that are investing here. And it's just really because it's a lower price point and they can't afford to do it in Toronto and Vancouver at the rates today. I mean, it's just crazy for them to do it. So that speculation has just moved around. And it's funny how most of these people, because I know people who work at multiple developers around the city, are from Ontario. Why that one province? Just think about that for a second. Why that one province? And do you think they're from a particular place in Ontario? It's not going to be Barrie. It's going to be the Greater Toronto area. And they're essentially the speculators who are just moving from now speculating on Toronto real estate to Calgary, maybe Montreal, maybe Halifax. All these lower price markets are the ones that are doing okay right now. And then you've also got the people that are moving, and I really feel like those are the ones that are going to get caught in the crossfire in the end. The ones that are moving to new places and they have like intense emotions, like they want to buy. I've seen all your comments, guys. I've seen your comments. I got a video coming on Calgary as well. And they've got intense emotions about buying a home, so much so that they would move their entire life from where their support network is to a new place, considering all the economic turbulence that we have right now. I mean, I know most people don't pay attention to the yield curve inversion, but considering all that, and considering even if you take away housing, literally everything in Calgary is about 20 to 30% more expensive. In fact, I'm going to be doing a comparison with a friend in Toronto because we've been going back and forth and I've been saying, you know, how much is this service in Toronto? And I've been saying it's this much in Calgary. And yeah, it's literally when you average it out, even with the differential in housing, it's about 20 to 30% more expensive. So unless you're getting a 20 to 30% raise at a minimum, you're actually going to be losing because people are just so obsessed and desperate and focused on this housing. So you have an incredibly emotional market in Calgary, entirely speculative, and full of people who are just moving purely based on emotions, not the economy. There's no oil boom. The economy's not booming. I mean, somebody sent me on Instagram. I'll tweet it out a little bit later. I haven't had a chance to download it. Some job fair in Calgary, another one with like 3,000 people lined up, and there was like 10 jobs. So yeah, Robert, what month will Canada get their first rate hike? Will we hike before the Fed? Do you mean cut? I'm so confused, Robert. Let me know. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna hike. I don't think they're gonna hike next. That's for sure. ultra low cost airline. You know, the funny thing is, and I think a lot of this has to do with consumer behavior and everything like that, because when I've spoke to people, friends and stuff about Lynx, they've said, oh, you know what? By the time you add in the bag and selecting a seat, it's more expensive than WestJet or Air Canada. But it's not, because I actually have done the comparison many, many times. And you don't even get like a bag necessarily with WestJet. You don't even necessarily get a seat either. In fact, I'm pretty sure they charge for all the seats. All it is just basically a lot of people have the Air Canada credit card or the WestJet credit card. I know for a fact the WestJet credit card is like the second most popular credit card in Alberta. So that has become oversubscribed to the point that it's entirely pointless having. I just cancel mine because like when you look at the fares, and this is what nobody does, and you do a comparison, it makes no sense. Even when you're getting this companion voucher, which you then have to pay a fee for and taxes, the airfares are higher priced. And Porter especially is like wiping the floor with Air Canada and WestJet in terms of cutting prices. And their prices seem to be the lowest constantly when I'm searching out like flights to Toronto and things like that. So it's a shame to lose Lynx. We were almost going to book a flight with literally a day before this was announced. So I was glad that it didn't happen, because we were going to book the flight to Vancouver. And yeah, it was cheaper. It was way cheaper. So a little bit sad, unfortunately, that Lynx is leaving the market, because it's just going to mean higher fares, higher prices. But I'm sure that all the oligarchs are just over the moon about it. Absolutely over the moon. Rate cut. I thought that's what you meant. Honestly, I have no idea. Like if you'd asked me last year, I would have said they would have cut by now. So whatever I say, take it with a grain of salt. I cannot forecast the future. And I don't really know. I don't really know. Like, I'm 50-50. I don't know when they're going to cut. I think they're going to keep holding the longer people keep saying that they're going to cut and interest rates are going to... And that has just got pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, if you think about it. They're constantly saying, oh, rate cuts are coming in the spring. Oh, rate cuts are coming in the summer. And I really don't think the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve have any excuse to cut right now. Stock market is at all-time high. You basically got like corporate debt market that is somehow holding up. No idea how. So they haven't really got any reason, big reason at this point in time anyway, to cut. Now, we all know that the yield curve inversion means something. Like, it means something's going to happen in the future. We don't know what. Could be an economic event. But we had like the regional banking crisis, the liquidity event that happened last spring in the United States, and the Fed came in with the bank term funding program and managed to kind of not save it, but I guess just keep things going for longer, if you like. And that's coming to an end soon, I believe. The bank term funding program is coming to an end in the spring. And again, that could be a catalyst. So there's so many things that could be a catalyst. The Bank of Canada, and this is the real funny thing, guys. The data is so manipulated now, and you have to bear in mind the Bank of Canada uses that data, that we all know on this channel that the job market is not like the unemployment figures suggest. Like, it is definitely destabilized over the past 12 months. The job lines, what's going on at career fairs across different provinces. So obviously, the job market is not what it was like before, yet the unemployment rate hasn't really gone anywhere. So you know, and yeah, anyways, a lot of that is manipulation. The GDP numbers, I mean, the economy's in recession. If you strip out the government spending, you know, the economy is just collapsing right now if you strip out government spending. And they're just managing to keep the numbers fudged enough by just spending a little bit more. It's a little bit of a coincidence, isn't it? So anyway, interesting. And thanks, Robert, for moderating the chat. As always, thank you so much. Thanks to Trent as well. If you're in here, Trent, haven't seen you in a while. Jeff, oh my God, Jeff is an OG on the channel. It is great to see you here. If you're getting death threats, it means you're doing a great job. Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, this is the sick world that we live in now. But yeah, it's true. And yeah, thanks for hitting the like button. With this new streaming software, I can see every time people hit the like button, which is kind of cool. It comes up on my screen, which is really nice. StreamYard. Yeah, bankruptcies up 41%. We're going to be covering that this week as well. You know, this is hugely significant. You guys who followed the channel since 2022, I said when they start raising rates, this is eventually going to lead to more businesses going bankrupt. And that was like a lag that we saw, as always we see with these rate hikes and rate cuts. And that's another thing, guys. If they start cutting rates, it's going to take 12, 18 months for that lag to eventually go into the economy. I mean, think when they cut rates in 2020, did everything just rip? Absolutely not. That's not what happened at all. And I think without the massive government spending that we saw in 2020, that wouldn't have happened at all. I don't think we would have seen the stock market ripping to all-time highs. In fact, because the stock market was collapsing when the Fed was announcing that they were cutting, and then they were cutting, and then they were going to do more QE. And yeah, it's just crazy. Scammers everywhere, yeah. Do you think Nvidia is in a bubble carrying the stock market, chips in Taiwan with China across the sea? Yeah, I mean, it's obvious Nvidia is in a bubble, but with all bubbles, it's very hard to predict when that bubble's going to end. And right now, I would just assume it's going to keep going because you look at that chart, that doesn't say a chart that's stopping right now, at least. But yeah, it's incredibly risky. I wouldn't gamble at this point. It's far too late to get into the game. But who knows? Could go another 20, 30%. But let's get up that chart, actually, because I looked at that chart the other day, guys, and you have to see it in chart form because it is, my God, it is crazy. What is the ticker symbol? I can't remember. It just looks so ridiculous. Look at this chart. I mean, oh my gosh. You know, you're sitting at a PE of 66 and a market cap of nearly $2 trillion. But just look at this chart. Just this year, I mean, it's gone from 400. Talk about a melt up. This is exactly like a melt up. I mean, yeah, you even had a pullback. I mean, imagine you had you foresaw this coming and you bought here at 112. That is just absolutely crazy, over nearly 500% gain. But yeah, it's just absolutely nuts, Nvidia, and what's going on there. Really is crazy. Captain Banana. Air Canada is the national airline and is responsible for national security. When there is a disaster somewhere in the world, Canada will send Air Canada. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's it is the national airline, obviously, but you could say it's even partly publicly owned. When you look at CPP, I'm sure they're carrying a bunch of Air Canada. So yeah, and that allows the government to exercise some control over them. I love this guy's channel. I didn't even know you watched this channel, but I was watching one of your videos literally yesterday. So thanks so much for coming in here. I know you probably get exactly the same sort of stuff because I'm not going to get into the nuance of what these people said, but it's all to do with politics anyways. If I wasn't delving into politics, I don't think anything would have happened. Mr. Sunshine is in the house. Hey, Luke, want to talk about why you left the UK and why you came to Canada? Maybe shed some light on the reasons you're leaving and the similarities between Canada and the UK. Good question. I mean, people can learn from my experiences and my mistakes. So, I mean, basically, we moved to Canada, and it was mainly we wanted to go to the United States, and I had family there, and I'd been visiting the United States, and I decided that I didn't want to go to the United States. My family who are there kind of put me off, And at that point in time, Canada just seemed like a better place. Now, we're talking back in 2012 or 2011, I believe. So that was when I first visited Canada. And, you know, we were staying around the Southern Ontario region. We went to the lakes. We went to all these nice towns, and we really, really liked it. We fell in love with Canada. We fell in love with the people. People are really nice. People are really genuine. And yeah, it was just totally different. So we moved mainly, though, because of just the lack of space. And this is a European thing. It's not just the UK. So the UK has no space. Anybody who's been to the UK knows this. In fact, when you go back to the UK from a place like Canada or anywhere in North America, or even Mexico, Central America, because that's very much like the North American type lifestyle, essentially, roads, spaces, and everything like that. But, you know, basically you go back there and it's like going back to a miniature world. And essentially the UK was incredibly expensive, but what I'm vowing to do is not make the same mistake that I made with Canada and where I move next, which I believe would be moving to the United States. Because yes, the United States is in a better position than Canada, I believe, right now. However, it's just falling just like Canada, and it's failing just like Canada, and it's having many of the struggles just like Canada. And in fact, you'll probably just be trading out like the housing crisis, housing bubble for like the medical system crisis and almost medical bubble in the United States, because anybody who's been through the United States medical system knows that it is a joke. Now, a lot of people like to tout that the medical system in the US is fantastic because people get seen. But if you're on the wrong end of that in terms of you get sick, you can get bankrupted even if you have insurance. Insurance doesn't cover absolutely everything, obviously. And that's not to say that the Canadian healthcare covers everything, because it's not like a universal plan, and it's not like people think. It's not free healthcare. You pay with your taxes. But the United States medical system has completely failed because the pharmaceuticals industry runs that. They have complete control over it. So what you'll pay is like 10, 20 times the price that you would pay in any other country. And I'll give you an example of this, actually, because I've been looking at health insurance, global health insurance coverage. And, you know, the funny thing is, even if I was living, this is why Canada has become such a joke, in my opinion, is because even if I was living in Canada, I would kind of feel like I need medical insurance because the healthcare system is so bad here, especially in Alberta, other provinces failing miserably as well, that you need the option to go to another country and get healthcare, get treatment, because the time scales that you're waiting, like if you're waiting to be diagnosed for cancer, things like that, you can get worse. You know, people are waiting 12 to 18 months. I've heard the stories. I've seen the documentaries like Aaron Gunn's documentary. So the Canadian healthcare system incredibly broken. Anyway, I've got off on a wild tangent there about the US pharmaceuticals industry and everything like that. But yeah, that's why essentially we're not moving to the United States, because high taxes, you know, slightly lower than the US, depending on what state you go to. But it has problems like Canada. It might be not as bad as Canada. I do believe the US is better. And I believe if you own a business that actually has physical presence as well, or you can't do your job remotely and you're like in-person engineer, something like that, United States, go there. You're going to get paid way more money. You're going to have a better lifestyle in the United States than you would ever have in Canada. And that really wasn't the case when I arrived. And yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, I didn't move because I was going to get paid more money in Canada. It wasn't really about the money. It was more about the lifestyle. And it was more about the open spaces, the people, everything like that, and the healthcare as well. The healthcare was much better back then, and even, you know, as far back as when I was hospitalized in 2017 with an acute appendicitis, the healthcare system in Ontario, I mean, I have nothing but positive things to say about what it was like back then. But the pandemic has absolutely destroyed the healthcare system now across Canada. Politicians are failing to do anything about that. And there is a lot of bureaucrats that are in the healthcare system that are getting paid insane amounts of money, whilst the nurses don't get paid, what they should be paid, in my opinion. So you're seeing them disappear and go to the United States. They can earn more money there. But yeah, the United States is like healthcare system is screwed too. Like, yes, you can get service, you're going to get care quicker. It's probably, but it might bankrupt you. And at what expense? I mean, back to what I was saying about I've been looking at insurance policies and plans. You can get global insurance at my age that covers every country in the world, excluding the United States, for $250 a month. Some people might say that's completely insane, but if you're not paying into a tax system like Canada, that's probably pretty good value for money, and that's with a $0 copay. However, if it's the United States, that number goes up to 600, just adding one country. And not only that, you can only use the hospitals in that insurance health network, whereas anywhere else in the world, you can use any hospital. And obviously, as people know, if you're in an emergency situation, you can't necessarily drive directly to the hospital that your insurance provider approves. So it gets very sticky. And, only people who've been screwed by the medical system know how bad it is in the United States. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I have had family that has been screwed really bad by that system. So I know how bad it is on that end, whereas most people don't really see that. So anyway, that was a long rant, but I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that when it comes to the United States, the medical system and everything like that. But yeah, so you're swapping out problems. I mean, there's always trade-offs when you move anywhere in the world. You're always going to have trade-offs. It's a case of what is that going to be? If you're sacrificing losing Amazon, for instance, yeah, that's convenience gone, but it's probably going to save you money. It's probably going to be better for your wallet. So, we'll see. Anyway, where I plan to go next, Panama, we'll see how long we last there. We might not stay there. We probably won't stay there. We'll probably be there a couple of years, and then we'll be traveling places, South America, trying to figure out where is best to base. Thank you so much for the super chat, Golden J. Thank you so much for your support from Music by Golden J. Yeah, I'll have to check out his music. I'm going to just write that down. I don't know if that's an actual channel, but I'll check it out anyway. Keep up the great work. More collaborations, please. Yeah, I certainly will. The collaborations, the hardest part for me is it takes a very long time to edit all those videos, and I try and edit out like all the pauses and everything like that, because I know that if I don't do it like that, the video isn't going to do as well as it should do. And that's just unfortunately the way YouTube is. People just want this kind of compressed sort of video. It's like this video, because it's a longer length, it won't get nearly as much exposure as my other videos. And you guys might say that it has 10x more value than my other videos. So collaborations, yeah, I definitely want to do more of them. And yeah, it's just having the time to do them. I mean, when I did all the collaborations, for instance, that played over the channel in December, I took a whole week out of work to do that. And I just spent the whole week interviewing people, editing, and that was literally an entire week's worth. And I think I did about 4 or 5. And I think that's a good way of doing it. And it was good that it had such a positive there was such positive comments from doing that. And it was really a trial to see what people thought. And I'm glad it went well. And that's probably how I'll structure it in the future. So I'll just take a week off, do all the collaborations, and then release them over the course of like 5 weeks or 5 months, even something like that. So yeah, it's just fitting in the time, because editing over an hour's footage can be consuming. That's for sure. And editing, editing's not really fun. Inflation is over 5%. You are making negative. That's true, but it's better than just sitting in a checking account and, getting 1, 2, 3%. So, I mean, and it's better, I think, in my opinion anyway, considering the risk in like financial markets right now. It's better than buying at the top potentially of one of those markets. But again, it's up to your individual investing methodology. I was driving downtown in Calgary yesterday, and when you hit downtown and you come down Nose Hill, anybody who's local will know this. Like you hit I guess you could call it Midtown. There's not much of a Midtown, so if you're in Toronto, it's not like Midtown Toronto. But anyway, you hit like all the apartment buildings and stuff like that. And my God, I was just like, this looks like all these buildings just look communist. Like it literally looks like Russia. I mean, some of the social housing buildings in Calgary were just, I mean, I guess they were built probably in the 60s, the 70s. So Ontario flies, which do you think is better, government issued fiat money or cryptocurrency? I mean, that's kind of hard to say, isn't it? Because it depends what you're trying to achieve with that money, doesn't it? So which is better? I mean, again, it depends. That's kind of hard to say. But crypto, in my opinion, I wouldn't put any money in it and hold it. And that's not saying the price doesn't go up. I've said this time and time again. I'm not predicting that the price is going to crash. It may go up 50% from now. But the thing is, I don't want to be part of a speculative mania holding crypto. So, and again, crypto is a bit broad as well. Maybe be specific. Like, is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum? Is it all these altcoins? Like, I mean, God, everyone was trading these altcoins. That was literally like a speculative mania. I just watched Dumb Money, by the way, and you got to watch that movie. I mean, it's Hollywood, so bear that in mind. But I thought it was pretty well done. As somebody who watched that all go down on the sidelines, watching the bubble and GameStop and everything like that, it was interesting to see the other side. I remember all the news stories about it, and I just was not interested in what was going on there, but it was interesting anyway. And the Wall Street bets thing, concealed carry. Oh man, we don't have that. You can't even a shopkeeper recently was getting prosecuted just for defending his store. That was covered by Rebel News. These type of things happen all the time. Like self-defense is non-existent in Canada essentially anymore. It's an absolute joke. Yeah, that's true, Robert. There is value stocks out there as well. There are a lot of stocks have gone down in price, and a lot of stocks are more fair value. And if you're investing for dividends as well, you're investing. You're not speculating. When it's something like Nvidia that doesn't pay you to own it, I don't class that as investment. I class that as a speculation because you're banking on the future price growth. I mean, in my opinion, it's better than like betting on real estate and speculating in real estate because at least it's liquid. So, if the thing starts coming down against you, you can sell and actually get out. Whereas people find out in these speculative bubbles in real estate, liquidity in real estate vanishes, and then the prices just absolutely tank in those situations, which we've seen in many of the smaller areas, especially in BC, where everybody was buying Airbnbs, and the locals have been completely priced out of those markets. And yeah, it's crazy. Is it really okay to defend yourself in Canada? No, it's not. I mean, it's just ridiculous. That's unfortunately the country that we live in today. It's really not. Thank you, Mr. Sunshine. That means a lot coming from you, my friend. You are doing a great job, a really great job, much better than me, exposing all the truths. Well, you know what? That is what's happening a lot. And I believe that because a lot of these people now, and it's not necessarily boomers as well, you got Gen Xers even. And yeah, so you've got all these people that basically have no pension And I can't remember the statistic, but I think in the United States it's over 50% that have no pension at all. So the only way that they can retire is selling that house and unlocking the equity. And that's what some people are doing. And then they're going to places like Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, all these other countries. I mean, even Dominican Republic. They're going to all these places because they can purchase a house there, cash, and then they've got the rest of the money, the equity from their house that they can then use for retirement. And because the cost of living is lower, they're also getting more bang for their buck. Whereas in Canada, they would essentially be poor. And I think this trend is just going to accelerate more and more and more as we go into the future, because essentially what you're going to have happen is more and more people without pensions, because as we get further down the road, I mean, when you get to my generation, there's going to be nothing, let me tell you. Like 90% of the people my age that I know are saving nothing towards their pension. And I don't think they ever will put money in a pension. And the thing is, even if you put money in a pension, is it even going to outpace inflation? I mean, it is always worth investing, in my opinion, for your future. And essentially, that future is retirement or whatever it's going to be, whatever your goals are. But you know what? Like, it's crazy. So many people are going to have no retirement, and they're sat on a mountain of equity. But that is kind of like a pyramid scheme, if you think about it, because you've got all the people that are moving from the top. I mean, this trend, like I said, has already started. Like, I've seen it firsthand. I've been to these countries, boots on the ground. Who's buying all the real estate? It's all old people retiring. A lot in a lot of cases, not old people, seniors, I should say. But yeah, so these people are retiring and they need to sell their house. They need to cash out that equity. You know, some people are I can't remember the number. I think it's like 1,200 people retiring every day in America this year. No idea what the statistic is in Canada. Not 1,200. I think it's 12,000. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so 11,200 every single day are getting to retirement age in the United States. And think about it, over half of those people, they do not have retirement. So it's an interesting dynamic to see happen, and it will be really interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, if you look at like Mexico, what's happened, I mean, it's very hard to tell because, like, for example, Costa Rica and Mexico, incredibly speculative real estate markets. Costa Rican banks started lending to foreigners, which just jacked up the prices through the roof. I mean, I went and looked at two houses. One was in Panama and the other was in Costa Rica in Elvitas. And basically, the house in Costa Rica was, I think it was twice the price or even 3 times the price. And it was built by the same company, guys. It was the same model house, just built. And it literally reminded me of Canada and the United States. The only thing that really changes, because the distances are so close when you look at those border towns, is what? Lending standards, fraud, speculation, all these different things. And it's exactly the same in Panama, because the banks, they will not lend you money if you are a foreigner. Like, no chance that you're getting a loan. And if you are getting a loan, you're going to want to pay it back so fast because it's going to be at nosebleed interest rates, and you're going to have to put an insane amount of capital up front. Like, it's going to have to be very favorable for the bank to take on that loan, and then it's going to be very unfavorable for you. Now, in Costa Rica, what happened is in 2020, the banks suddenly started lending to foreigners. So it's actually quite easy to get a loan in Costa Rica and buy a home. And that will be a total disaster. But God knows when that'll unravel. But yeah, that's just, it goes to show how bubbles can be blown up right next to each other, like Canada, the United States, those border towns where you can rent out houses for, over 10% in some cases. I mean, I've seen ones going for 12% plus yield. And I'll go into that. I got a video coming about that, which you guys will find interesting, how to value real estate essentially globally, in a way that is pinned to fundamentals instead of this emotional way that everybody seems to do it. It's really good, because when you look at something and you can value it like that, it takes the emotion out of the purchase. It really does when you bring it back to fundamentals, and that's what I want to help people do. So if you see that video come up, let me know. I've already put it on Patreon. I edited literally yesterday, so yeah, I'm so sorry. Like, sometimes I just completely ramble on about stuff, and I apologize. Get a free Porsche. So you guys know Orlando Miner, incredibly funny guy, great business guy as well. And he sent me that. And I said, buddy, I tweeted that out. He's not on X. But I was like, I tweeted that out literally a week ago. And he was like, that stuff was literally going on in 2008. And obviously Robert's talking about get a free Porsche when you buy this condo. But this was all the sort of perks that you were getting back in the bubble in 2008. When things weren't going well, it was get your free Porsche, get this, get that. They just want you... yeah, so it's crazy. 10 Celsius in the Okanagan, bugs in my face. Well, that is nice, because here I can see a little bit of blue sky at least, but I know it's absolutely freezing out there. But it's not going to stop me getting out after this live stream. NFT, but oh man, no. No, none. I don't own any NFTs. Trump is 100% fake. He didn't drain a thing as he said he would. I repeat, 100% fake, all being fooled. I mean, when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Pierre, I think of it like this. The government has got so big now that the politicians even, it doesn't matter who's elected anymore, because the government is so big. Is it like everybody in the government gets fired? Are the politicians micromanaging every single person in the government? Absolutely not. So if most of the people working in the government are woke, then guess what? You're going to have woke policies. And, it's kind of crazy, but I was speaking to a historian actually in Argentina who reached out to me. I was lucky enough he reached out to me because I think I said in that Malay video that I wanted to learn more about Argentina. He recommended a few books that I could read, and also told me a little bit how it got so bad in Argentina. And he was saying that essentially it got to the point where government was so large that, like I just said, it doesn't matter. You can change the politician, but you're just changing the face. Everything that's within and behind that facade stays and remains exactly the same. All the interests that control the government remain exactly the same. So I just have no hope. And if I had hope, I would stay here. I think it's going to be a terrible decade for Canada coming ahead. I really do. And my plan after I leave is to help people get out of Canada, help people find work opportunities and be able to work remotely from any location, particularly US companies targeting, because there is so many things that people can do. There is a world of opportunity out there to people who actually want to seize it. And, if you can get US dollar income as well instead of Canadian dollar income, if you're contracting on your own, I think that is a better case than living in Canada, high cost of living. I mean, that's the thing. When you move to a lower cost of living country, you have more freedom to choose what you want to do. Like you can contract easily, you can not have work for 3 months, and it doesn't matter so much because you haven't got you're not paying $3,000 a month for rent, and what you get for that is an unproductive environment and just a very bad living standard. And the healthcare system, as I said, that's a big component there as well, is the fact that if you get sick, or, you know, if you need to get diagnosed with cancer, things like that. The stories are horrific. And the things people are going through in the healthcare system is disgusting, considering the amount of money that we put into it. And I can feel my nerve throbbing out now in the side of my head, because it does strike a nerve with me really bad, because we pay so much taxes to the government and they just waste the money constantly. And we don't do anything about it. We just don't do anything about it. And this is why, like, I've realized I cannot fix this, in the sense, like, I'm one person. And I know many of you agree with this as well, that they're just wasting our money. We need the government to be much smaller. I mean, Pierre used to talk about that a lot. It's not something he talks about so much anymore, is it? I wonder why. Because now his interests are on being elected, whereas before he was acting on behalf of the people that he represented. Now he's just trying to get his party elected because he's leader of the party. So you have to realize that these politicians are narcissists, and they'll say a lot of things to get you emotionally charged up. Pierre is especially good at that. And he's a smart guy. And, you know, Trudeau is good at it on the left side as well, at getting the people on the left charged up. You have to hand it to those two. But they are, I mean, Pierre is going to be a better prime minister. And I just want to put a disclaimer about that. And I do believe he will be prime minister, and he will be better than Trudeau. But in reality, I don't think many things will change. As we've seen with the governments in Alberta, you know, you elect this person, you think they're going to be great, like Danielle Smith, and, you know, they put through some policies, and you think, that was all optics. You think, how many people are affecting that? I mean, I'm not going to go into it because it'll probably happen anyway. So many of my videos these days, but I'm not going to get into it. But Danielle Smith came out with a very polarizing policy recently, and I'm sure you're all aware of what it was regarding. Trying to think of a way of talking about it without saying the word and triggering the algorithm. But anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. But think about it. In a province like Alberta, how many people do you really think that affected? Like, you're talking about a minuscule amount. She did that all because of the optics. And they're clever like that. Politicians, I'll hand it to them, they're clever like that. You know, you go back to the Roman times, the Greek times, it was very much the same thing. So I don't think that much is going to change with these politicians, because who's behind the curtain, who's pulling the strings, just remains the same, and that remains intact. So, and as they become more leaders, they become more disconnected as well with the public. I mean, think about it. Trudeau has been in office, I can't even remember, too many years. But anyway, he's totally disconnected. I mean, think about the life he lives. Like, he is totally disconnected with reality. And that's what happens. So anyway, it's unfortunate. And the sad thing is, you know, when you have policies come through, like, the economy is going to implode. And if that happens on Pierre's watch, guess what? I guarantee he won't be prime minister the next time around. And I think that Trudeau will have stepped down by then, and it will be whoever's next to become leader of the Liberal Party. But you're just literally changing hands between two parties that are actually very similar, and they act like they're very different. And it's all a show. It's all a drama show. And that's what I encourage people to do, is look behind that drama show. And it's channels like Mr. Sunshine, Clyde, that do that very, very well. Some of the best channels in this country, if not the best channels in this country. So YouTube channels. So anyway, Calgary's awful. Don't catch a falling knife. Well, I mean, it's still going up, so you wouldn't be catching a falling knife at this moment in time. But yeah, in the future, you're really right about that. You could be catching a falling knife. Does Calgary still allow foreign buyers? I don't think so. Well, yeah, I mean, there's loopholes to that law that they put in anyway, but that was a federal law that they put in. But I think why the money launderers are less interested in Alberta is because of the land registry, and because I'm not sure you can do this in BC, but in Alberta, it's very easy on any property to pull up who owns it, that exact person who owns it, or whether it's a foreign corporation or anything like that. And I don't think the money launderers like that, whereas a lot of other provinces, it's not that public and it's not that easy. Don't get me wrong. The spin tool from the Alberta government is a joke. Like anybody who's used that knows how it's like it was made in 2003 or something like that. It's just, yeah, you need to watch a video just to learn how to use that tool. Rule number one, always pay in cash, screw the banks. Yeah. I mean, if you pay in cash, and this is the thing as well, which has kind of put me off all these Western countries entirely, is because it's just a rat race. It's just a race to the bottom. Like the government just wants you to get indebted up to your eyeballs. You're easier to control. We saw that play out over the past 4 years, how people were easily controlled by the government. And yeah, there was pushback in the end, and thank God that happened, and thank God the Freedom Convoy existed, and thank God we had that movement, because it did achieve something. It did achieve, the mandates. They were essentially gone within a couple of months, just coincidentally of that. And then, of course, what happened in Ukraine, everything just changed to that, and we all just forgot about it. But, that was really a turning point for me in Canada as well, because it's hard. I'm so sad about leaving. I really, really am, because I often look around and I go, this is such a beautiful place. This country has so much potential. It has so many natural resources. The people are so nice. Like I know so many really nice people in this country who have come from many other countries, not just Canada natives. And that's one of the brilliant things about the country. But you know what? What happened with Trudeau and him essentially declaring war on a peaceful protest just because it wasn't what he liked kind of signals what's going to happen in the future. And even right now, when you look at what Pierre's trying to push through with this digital ID about, again, I don't want to mention that because that'll probably trigger it, but I'm going to have to. But it's all about this porn. So basically, he wants people to verify their identity to watch porn. And he's saying that he's going to do this because kids and everything like that, it's too easy to watch. Okay, all right. But what people aren't saying is you can easily put parental controls on your internet router. Anybody can do that. You can even ask your internet provider and they will do it. So you can put parental controls on. I mean, because I know a lot about IT, you can even restrict the actual device. There's various things you can do. You can even buy routers specifically for that. So, and then when it comes to people's phones as well, you can also do it through the actual account of that particular phone. So again, they're restricted. So we already have all these features available, but we're going to require the digital ID. So that seems a little bit suspicious to me, and that seems a little bit World Economic Forum type stuff, because this is what the World Economic Forum's been on about for years, is digital ID and digital forms of passes. And I mean, this is exactly what we had with the cerveza sickness and what happened there. I mean, if you think about that, it was all to protect us. We need the government to protect us. And that, again, I'm just like, we're going from authoritarian left to authoritarian slightly right. Like it's, oh God. Yeah, and you know what, guys? I really think even if the Conservatives were in power in Canada, you would have probably still had the same authoritarian rules. I guarantee you probably would have had all the authoritarian rules. It's just the politics of it all. It was used to essentially, split people up and make people more divisive when it came to those policies later on. I mean, you have to remember that politicians, they're just trying to use things as leverage to get themselves elected or their party elected. That is their main goal as leader of that party. It's not to represent us. We're the plebeians. We are the plebs, essentially. monarchy. And that's what they think of us in some ways. Now, I think Pierre is more of an average person, but the more and more he drifts into that leader role, into that prime minister role, the more disconnected he will get. And the other thing is, you're not electing Pierre, you're electing his party. So if 98% of the Conservative Party wants something and Pierre doesn't, it really doesn't matter. So it's unfortunate the way the politics works in this. I mean, unfortunately, there's just no way of changing it, because in reality, what you need is a level playing field so you can have parties. And I suppose the argument against this would be that if you had parties that, you know, make it easier for different parties to participate in elections and make it more of a level playing field, then you could end up with very extreme politics. And that is true. That's like a trade-off of it. So I don't really know that there's any solution. I just believe that we're in this cycle, and this is all part of the cycle. I mean, Rome went from a monarchy to a democracy, very similar to what we have today, to then a dictatorship, and then back to a monarchy. It went full circle, and it did it over hundreds of years. And, you know, reading the book, which the name escapes me right now, but The Calm Before the Storm, that's what it's called. But anyway, reading that book, it's incredible. It's a fascinating book, because you can draw so many parallels, especially with the land and everything like that, because it's so similar to what we have in Canada in terms of oligarchies and monopolies on land, and then people getting really angry and upset about that and pushing back and pushing back and pushing back eventually until something so radical gets proposed that it's almost communist. So it's crazy, but yeah, really interesting. How long do you think housing in Canada drops from present prices? Another 30%. I don't really know. Just being totally honest, I don't really know. I think at this point, they'll just continue declining, but we'll see what happens. Very hard to pick the bottom of where this is going to be. I mean, it's easier to see a bottom after you've passed it than try and predict when it's going to come, in my opinion. And that goes not just for the housing market, it goes for the stock market as well. Most retail investors are constantly trying to find the bottom instead of just chasing the trend and profiting off the trend. So I like Flare, never tried Lynx. You know, I always looked at Flare, but they were always incredibly expensive from Calgary. I don't know why. Lynx was always just cheapest. Have you heard anything about banks not issuing cash after April 19th? I have not heard anything about that, and I think there would be big news if there was something coming like that. But yeah, I think it's important to have cash on hand. Definitely, I use cash for all small transactions. I left Switzerland 25 years ago because of ridiculous overcrowding and stratospheric real estate. I love the space in rural Alberta. However, today I'm thinking of Uruguay. Well, yeah, it depends on your circumstances. If you're getting close to retirement age, not a bad place. I haven't visited there, but that's on a list. And part of the reason why I'm going to Panama is because it's a great hub. Like, it is the hub of Latin America. So essentially, to travel to places like Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, all these places, Chile, where else? There's loads of places that I want to visit and suss out. I mean, especially Argentina, with considering everything that's going on. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that, Joe. And it's because of politics. You know, when politics gets into it, people just get so emotionally charged up. I felt like the last time I did a live Q&A, I was just completely off the ball. How about gold? I think it's really important to own gold. You know, I'm currently trying to debate what I'm going to do with my gold, whether I'm going to either sell it and buy into like a trust or transport it transport it back to the UK, but I don't really want it in Canada. The next crisis, how low will CAD go? Wow. It's a reflection of the Canadian economy. Canadian economy is not doing so well. I mean, I'm surprised that it's held up as well as it has, to be totally honest with you, considering all the headwinds that are going against it. It is surprising that it's held up this much, because the way I look at it is I've compared it to how much other currencies have gone down, like the pound, the euro, and I think the Canadian dollar, it hasn't actually gone down as much, even though it's gone down. And it's around 74 cents at the moment, I believe, to the US dollar, which is sort of near to like 75 cents, 76 cents is sort of the historical average for the past 5 to 8 years. So, yeah, gold is always good. Gold is an insurance policy. In my opinion, that's how I utilize it. It's just if all money, well, I mean, let's face it, if all money goes to zero, it's going to be like like an apocalypse, essentially. So, but it's good to have, because when you look at events like what happened in the UK, for example, with the gilt market, and when the pound just absolutely tanked, what was happening to gold, and what happened to gold after that? You know, it went up to all-time highs. So if you had gold, and the great thing about gold is you don't have to be 90% in it. Most people are like 10, 15, 20% into it in physical gold, or like a gold trust like Sprott, and then basically, you know, it's just a hedge. Well, it's not a hedge. It's an insurance policy. It's an insurance policy on your money. And you definitely need that in Canada, because, yeah, I don't think that the Canadian dollar long term is positioned very well. But we'll see. I could be wrong on that, especially because if oil prices do really well, and you get Pierre, who really makes some sort of effort to increase output, then yeah, you could see the Canadian dollar appreciate. But it's kind of become disconnected with oil now, and more connected with the overall economy. CPP is transferable to some countries if they have a program. Yeah, God, I hate CPP. I think that once you earn a certain income amount, you should be able to opt out of CPP. I think, again, this is like, it's like authoritarian, that you must have the Canada pension plan. And that's for a reason, I believe, so the government can influence power and control over the companies it owns through Canada pension plan. I believe there's a motive for everything that they do. And on the face of it, it's to help you. It's to help you out. And I get it. Like, most people living paycheck to paycheck, they need to be forced, because otherwise they're just going to spend it. They're never going to have anything. But the reality is, by the time like people like me get to retirement age, I mean, God, like CPP's probably going to buy you a loaf of bread. I mean, if you look at the purchasing power and how it's declined, it's just, yeah, it's a joke. I mean, I would so rather put that money in like an offshore pension and not be forced to pay into that. And I think if you're earning household income over $100,000, you should be able to opt out of CPP. It's just, it's a joke that it's forced upon us. Look at that snow go. Monkey NFTs. Major oil spill in Middle East. Brace for impact. I haven't heard of that. About that. 2012 10-pound bag of potatoes, 99 cents. I'm laughing at that because that's so cheap. 2019 10-pound bag, $1.99. 10-pound bag, $5.99 today. Even more if you're in Calgary. I mean, I've seen the bags going for $9 in Superstore. I mean, we went shopping today, and I was just like, man, it's frustrating going shopping, because every time you go, you're like, what's gone up in price even more? I mean, does anybody actually believe these numbers? The mainstream economists do. They act like they do. Everybody on Bloomberg acts like the CPI numbers are real, even though they're not. I mean, and even though if you asked any of them off the record out of the office whether they thought it was real, they would say, no, that number is completely misleading. But yet we all have it. And I believe that's one of the major problems which has distorted economies in the Western world, is because the numbers have now become so fake, so fake for everything, that really, you don't have interest rates where they're meant to be. I mean, if you look over the past 10 years on shadow stats and you look at the average inflation rate, it's been well above 5%, yet the Fed's been saying it's below or around 2%. So, you've been eaten alive, and people have been eaten alive. They've seen the squeeze, they felt the squeeze, and now it's like, yeah, they're getting squeezed by their balls. It's really hitting everybody so bad. I mean, it's like literally the most common topic these days, the cost of living crisis. I didn't see your comment, Carlos, sorry. He said, what about me? But I never saw the comment. Layoffs in the Calgary office this week. De Beers, Canada. Oh dear, yeah. The pension talk is a joke. Y'all not know real old people. Oh, I know you did this, Keith. Hola, Luke. Sell house, Mexico, baby. Yeah, you tell them. That's what people are doing. I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. Whipping up a sauce. Oh. Thanks to everybody saying to like it. I'm trying to find a really good one. That's a good one. How is real estate prices in Mexico? It depends where, but most places overvalued, complete bubble. And the reality is you've had, like I said, all these people that are retiring. So that's been a big impact on the market. You've had Mexicans buying for Airbnb. You've had foreign speculators buying for Airbnb. And all that has just like, oh man, it is crazy. I mean, it makes no investment sense whatsoever. And that's really how you can tell whether something's in a bubble or not. Because if it makes sense as an investment from an investment standpoint, then it's probably not in a bubble, is it? But if it makes no sense as an investment, then it's in a bubble, because essentially, what are people banking on? Future price growth, the price going to the moon, all different things like that. I mean, I know in Mexico they have bad capital gains tax, so house flipping and things like that really isn't a thing. But real estate prices, like in places I've been in Mexico, the coastal regions where expats go, just insane, absolutely insane. Even the rent prices are completely out of whack there. So yeah, it's just a crazy. Sold my house 2 years ago, put money into GIC stocks and traveling the world, living with my son. And you know what? This brings up a good point, because as somebody said earlier, that's not coupled with inflation. However, if you're living off that income and you're going to some place like Thailand or some other country where the currency is constantly in decline against your native currency, then that acts as a tailwind for you. And also, if the inflation is lower there as well, then again, that's more tailwind for you. So you can actually increase your purchasing power by doing that and leaving. I mean, that's something that my buddy George Gammon's always on about, which he's tried to do and done in Colombia, essentially. And just on the topic of Colombia as well, like I know it's not the best place for taxes, but real estate, and I mean, you can find insane deals, especially in Medellin and Cartagena, on real estate, and it's just crazy. Like, because you know what, it does open your mind up when you see the world and you see real estate prices in different places. You begin to realize how much of a bubble Canada is in when you just zoom out of that bubble and realize that you can actually get a really good return. Like, I mean, it's very difficult, don't get me wrong, but it can be done. We were looking at a hotel in Cartagena, and that was like an incredible investment. Like, the return on income, the guy had statements to back it all up. Over 20%. The margins were great. It was a hotel. It's like 10 or 12 bedrooms. And yeah, like, you can get insane deals and buy a business. I mean, imagine like you're selling a property in Toronto, $1.6 million. You can go and buy a cash flowing business in Colombia and just literally kick back, have other people manage it. I mean, I could never do that personally because I don't trust other people to manage my investments. But anyway, you could kick back and just live off the income from that. So there are investments out there. Just because everything's going down in Canada, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm leaving and I'm getting out, because it's not productive to be here. Like, there's no productive investment opportunities anymore. Like, the economy's going down the toilet, and for the next decade at least, it's going to take a long time for that to work its way out. And I don't care. It's not about the politicians anyway. It's bigger than them. So they can say that they're going to do this, that, and the other and make it better. But in the reality is the economy is bigger than them and their words. Great channel. Thank you. Thank you. Great listener. Thank you for all your support. You guys are what keeps me going, from the trolls, the death threats, to the 95% positive comments that I get on this channel. I love all you guys so much. The support is really what keeps me going. If I didn't look at the comments, if I didn't engage with you, I probably would have given up, to be totally honest with you, because it's difficult. It's difficult doing this sometimes and having the time to do this. But when people really appreciate what you do and you feel like you're making a difference, even if that difference is tiny, it's worth it just for that. It's never been about the money for me, as I've said many times on this channel. By the way, the money has completely collapsed over the past couple of years. So that's proof. I'm doing the same amount of work as I was last year, and the money that I get from it has completely collapsed. So it's not about the money. That's not why I do this. I do this to help people. And specifically on the topic of help, please, when you see the video come, which will probably be next Sunday, about how to value real estate, just share that video with everybody that you know, because I don't think anybody can argue the formula that I'm teaching in that video is valuable. And it's not something that I came up with. I learned from people who are way smarter than I am. And those people like Jason Hartman, George Gammon, Kenny McElroy, these are people that employ that strategy and that way of valuing real estate. And it's looking at it as an investment. Even if you're buying that house, it doesn't matter if you're buying it or you're actually investing in it, you want a cash flowing investment, you should still look at it from an investment perspective. Is it a worthwhile investment of your money? Because that's what it is. Because in 90% of the cities, Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, you save more money renting than you would buying. And especially when you consider all the consumer behaviors around buying a home. I mean, people probably spend $1 million in home decor and all the crap and garbage that goes into the home that ends up in the basement, all the consumeristic stuff. Probably $1 million over the course of the 20, 30 years that they own it. Whereas renters just don't have that urge to go, decorate places, because you just think, well, at least I think, where you live is temporary when you're a renter. Or at least I treat it that way. And then I've learned, because you're not in control of it, other people are. So you have to think of it as more of a temporary thing. And that's the hard thing about renting, obviously. Everything's not fantastic about renting. From Uncle Chico, I am a Costa Rican living in Leduc, Alberta. And what I am hearing is that the west side of CR is overpriced because of so many expats moving in this area and buying everything at high prices. the prices, yeah, Uncle Chico, the price, I love that name. The prices are absolutely insane. Thank you for that super chat. Thank you for the support. The prices are insane. When you look at the price of real estate in Costa Rica, it's more expensive than even Canada. And as an investment, it makes zero sense. Even if you're looking at Airbnb, different things like that, renting it out, it makes no sense to invest in it. I mean, I can't remember. I get the emails all the time about the Costa Rica real estate. I do think the market has kind of turned a corner there. There seems to be way more homes listed now than there was a couple of years ago. But the prices really aren't coming down fast enough yet. But these markets like Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama can become incredibly illiquid very, very quickly. I mean, Panama is Panama's real estate market has crashed over the past year because of the protests. When I went back there, looking at the real estate opportunities that are in Panama, it is kind of hard to ignore those. Now, looking at the risks with the canal and everything else, that's sort of another thing to consider. But from an investment standpoint, it's very hard to ignore. And, you saw prices in areas like Boquete. Boquete is like one of the biggest expat communities in the world, I believe. And Boquete, the prices have just collapsed because that community got cut off by protests. A lot of expats got screwed by that, especially retirees who couldn't get medication. People couldn't get gas. The gas pumps ran out. People obviously use gas stoves and everything to cook in Panama, so they couldn't get that. So people were literally running out of supplies. I mean, you have to prepare in any country, but in countries like Panama, even more so you have to prepare. But yeah, like those people, they saw real estate values absolutely collapse. So I saw a house and my buddy Chris, if you're watching it, you are a legend, my friend. I thank you so much. But me and Chris have been discussing this back and forth about Panama. And he lives there in Panama. He's lived there for about 3 years. Really, really nice guy. Really nice guy. Helped me loads. Thank you so much, Chris. But anyway, we've been chatting about the real estate situation in Panama. And man, Luceria, I probably pronouncing that terribly, but there's a really exclusive gated community in Boquete. Beautiful, like really, really nice houses there. And this modern house that probably would have gone for around $700,000 in 2021 sold for just over $300,000 as a fire sale in literally a week. And the inventory has skyrocketed there. There's loads and loads of places on the market. Right now, there's a lot of rental demand from expats, which is putting up rents. So, when the markets are incredibly illiquid like that, like places like Panama, Costa Rica, everything like that, the prices can drop through the floor. So it is so important to value it as an investment, because if prices do drop through the floor, then you're not a bag holder, because even if prices drop, like let's say you buy a property at $300,000, if you can rent that out for $3,000 a month, then you probably never need to sell that. I mean, I'd have to do the math off the top of my head. I think that would work. But let's say, $3,000 a month, if you could rent it out for that, you would never be forced to sell it. And you never want to be in a position where you're forced to sell real estate. And that's the risk that really people take in bubbles, and even like in Alberta, because I use Alberta, Toronto, and Vancouver in my examples for this video of valuing real estate. And you'll see, yeah, Alberta is a smaller bubble, but still, it's a hugely risky place to buy. Prices could go up another 20-30% from here. So it's not like a video saying prices are going to come down. It's just a video saying, is it value for money? Like, people are going to be completely screwed if they lose their job and, there's economic turbulence, which there is. Then what's going to happen? Those people are going to be trying to sell with everybody else because they can't rent it out, because if they rent it out, they're going to be $1,000, $2,000 underwater per month. And if they've fallen on hard times, job loss or anything like that, they're not going to be able to do it. The hilarious thing in Calgary is this cycle just seems to happen every 5-10 years in Calgary. But people seem to always say, hey, it's different this time, guys. It's different. I mean, the migration that happened in 2013, 2014, the bust that happened in 2015, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. When you've been here long enough and seen it full circle, like, it's just crazy to see. And this has been one of the most extreme cycles in Alberta, in my opinion. And again, like, who knows when it's going to end? It's probably going to end when the economy and especially the job market really start to go off a cliff, which is happening because we're already seeing the unraveling of that. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video and being on this live stream. Your support, thank you so much for your continued support. I really appreciate every one of you who are on this channel and on this live stream right now. Thank you so much. Even if you're a hater, if you're somebody who supports me, I thank you. Nevertheless, you're giving me motivation to carry on doing this, and I can't thank you enough for that. And anyway, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Have a drink, non-alcoholic, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.